UCAT testing period is over, so you probably have a good gauge of whether you have a good chance of getting into medicine or not. If you did much worse than you wanted to, don't be disheartened. There are many pathways into medicine. Like, I understand it is disappointing. You can't, get over that quickly. But I do want you to know that there are many pathways into medicine. You can do biomedicine, you can do science, you can apply interstate. Some places I think value your ATAR more highly, or maybe the interview more highly. And definitely try those pathways as well, because it just takes a little bit of extra time, and in that time you can try new subjects, have more breadth than if you went straight into medicine. Apart from that, if you're sort of in the borderline, don't stress too much about it. I reckon the best way is for you to just focus really hard on the end of your VCE exams and do as well as you possibly can, and then whatever will be, will be. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Darren, a first year medical student studying at Monash University here in Melbourne, Australia. I know a lot of my viewers are in school and particularly VCE, and I know many of you are also looking to get into medicine at Monash University or other universities as well. Now, the interview is a very important part at Monash. It's a third of the criteria for you getting in, and I've seen a lot of ads around this time about hundreds of dollars, services that cost hundreds of dollars starting now, otherwise, miss out on this core component of your selection process. Now, to cut the video short, I didn't do that. I don't think it's necessary. And you can decide for yourself. I'm not here to make that decision for you, but it'd be good to sort of evaluate both sides and sort of see whether it's actually necessary to engage in those courses. So today's video will be split into two parts. In the first part, I'll be talking about what I did to prepare for the interview. And in the second part, I'll be talking about what I recommend you guys do. So my interview went extremely successfully. I was speaking for the most of the time allocated, and a lot of my examiners, when they asked me whether I had anything else to add, they also told me that you can just stop talking. You can not say anything more, and you don't really need to add anything. And so I feel like I did really well in that interview, and I'd like to share with you guys my preparation process. Enjoy. Firstly, what I did to prepare for the interviews. I needed to set the scene a little bit because last year was a bit strange. So the way it works was the first round of interviews, they'd only look at your UCAT because the first round of interviews were before the ATAR actually came out. And the second round of interviews was after ATAR release. But overall, they would consider all three components. So I was in that first round because my UCAT was high enough. And so my actual interview date, I'm pretty sure, was the 16th of December. And my exams finished about early to mid-November. And so my plan and what I did was only prepare for the interview after my exams were over. I really wanted to focus on my ATAR and do as well as I could, and after that I would prepare for my interview. Also, another reason why I liked having that interview straight after my exams was because I just didn't have to think about it. I could just focus solely on my exams and have comfort in the fact that the time I have left after exams is still really sufficient for me to do extremely well in the interview. Now, I signed up for a med entry course, and this course was in two parts. So the first part was this workshop where Dr. Ray would talk to us about the interview process. Look, it wasn't that useful, I'd say. There was a lot of motivational stuff, and in that regard it was good, but I didn't really need that. I needed more practical stuff, so it wasn't that helpful in that front. But what was really helpful was their workshop after that, where you just went through an entire interview process. You do 6 stations, and it'd be 3 people. It'd be the examiner plus 2 people in a group, and you change examiners each time. But the 2 students would alternate. So one student would do all 6 stations while the other student watched, and then they switch over, and for the second half of the day, the other student would do all 6 stations. I thought that was quite nice. You can sort of meet other people who are looking to get into Monash medicine and sort of see how they respond as well. So that was really useful in terms of just getting a feel for what the entire process was like. Next, my actual interview process. Now, I didn't start preparing for the interview straight after my exams. I took about a week and a half, 2 weeks off just to relax because I didn't really feel like preparing for the interview straight after my exams. So that means I prepared for about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks for the actual interview, and that was completely enough. So, as long as you practice intensively in that time, I feel like that's enough to do well. And my practice can just be summed up with the word practice. I did a lot of it. I had a lot of online resources I used. I'll see if I can find them and drop them in the description box below. One in particular had a lot of scenarios and a lot of ideal answers. And I practiced with a lot of my friends. And the important thing about this practice is try and make it simulate the actual exam. My MMI last year, I think, was slightly different to yours will be this year. It was 6 stations last year and different timings. Looking at yours now, you have 8 sequential stations and you will be interviewed for 8 minutes, followed by 2 minutes for scoring and changeover. So 10 minutes per station. So in that 2 minutes, I feel like you do get some reading time. Last year we did have a little bit of reading time, but do try and time yourself and see if you can speak for that entire length of time. Usually the problem with people is they don't speak long enough. And so I practiced under timed conditions. I practiced a lot of scenarios, and the scenarios, a lot of them were similar in the actual MMI, and one was actually basically the same as one I've had in the actual MMI as well. So yeah, that was my preparation process. It started about 2 weeks out from the actual interview. It involved a lot of practice with my friends, looking at a lot of ideal answers and comparing them with mine, and also just messaging people in medicine who had already gotten into Monash Medicine as well. Next, what I recommend you guys do to prepare. So I do urge you guys to sort of get a feel for the MMI a little earlier, because I feel like I grasp things quite quickly. If you don't, then definitely hop on to some websites, have a look at what style of questions MMIs are like, and also see what answers they're looking for, just to get a gist of it, get it into your head and have an idea of it. I wouldn't distract yourself from preparing for your 8-hour exams and all that. I really don't think it's necessary to practice from now all the way to your interviews for the interview. I think intensive practice and so you peak at the interview stage is enough. And I don't think there are that many tactics and sly things involved. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I did really well in the interviews, and there's not that much nuance to it. You just answer the question well, you answer it completely, try and have a structure in your head, and that's how you do well. Further, if you have questions, and I highly do recommend you contact people who you know are in medicine, feel free to message me, ask me questions in the description, in the comments below, or send me a message on Instagram or email, and I'll be happy to answer questions about the Monash interview process. I'm also planning of holding a practice MMI day, so sort of like what they did at Med Entry, but just with my friends and some Monash Med people, and we'll do a practice run through with you. I don't know exactly the specifics of that, but I'll arrange that much closer to the actual interview date. If you really wanted to spend money, then I guess the simulations are pretty good. So like the Med Entry day where I had that entire process. So we had 6 stations, it was all timed, and the scenarios were given in exactly the same way as they would be on interview day. I think that was extremely useful, and they had feedback as well. But apart from that, it's up to your individual discretion whether you want to spend money on other stuff, like really sly tactics or small tricks to help you do well in the interview. So good luck for all your assessments. It's holidays now, but it probably doesn't feel like it for a lot of you VC kids. If you're stressed at all, if you have any questions, contact me, drop them in the comments below. And happy preparing, and smash out your prep now so you'll feel really confident going into term 4 and going into the exams. And I look forward to seeing you all next time.